to share with you my experience propagating oak trees from acorns. And this is the little tree that started it all for me. About, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, I was several ridges over from the house here walking a creek, and there's an old bur oak in there. Well, the tree is huge in circumference, so it's well over 100 years old. So anyway, about 5 years ago, I picked up this acorn that had a root coming out of it, about an inch long root, and I brought it home and put it in a container and raised it in my windowsill until the following spring, and then I brought it out here and planted it. And you can see what it's done just in 5 years or so. Now this is ideal conditions. You know, it's in my backyard. I can baby it. I can do some selective pruning on it. You know, I keep it fertilized and watered, so it's really done well. Yeah, I do what I can to propagate some of these species that we've lost in the past. So let me go inside and show you what I've got going on today. Okay, well, so with oak trees, some of them have to be stratified, which means you put them through a false winter before they'll germinate, and other ones don't. The Chinkapins and the bur oaks, you don't have to stratify those. As soon as you pick them up off the ground, you can plant them and they'll do just fine. What I like to do is collect a bunch of them, put them in a Ziploc bag with a wet paper towel, and just kind of store them for a few months in a refrigerator just to keep them cool and moist until I'm ready to deal with them. These Chinkapins I picked up on October 30th of 24, and here we are roughly, I don't know, the 15th of December. So I picked these acorns up fresh 6 weeks ago. I've had them in the refrigerator ever since, and they're starting to send out a little root. So this is what they do. So they've already got a head start. And then I'll take them out in I've got a compost bin. Part of it's sectioned off just for this. And I used to plant them in containers, and over time I figured out that these oaks of all species, the first thing they do is send down a taproot, and the taproot goes a lot faster than what the top of the plant does that you see. And they'll hit the bottom of that container, and then it'll start to swirl. They get root bound. I'm wondering if some of those that I planted the last several years that were bound up and the taproot was starting to curl at the bottom of that container, if they'll recover from that. So what I've started doing is just planting them in real loose compost. I'll let them grow for a year, and then I'll dig them up, and that way the taproot has gone straight down, and I can plant them however deep necessary to keep that taproot going straight. Now on other species like these chestnuts, the common white oak, and I propagate both of those, you have to stratify those, put them through a false winter. So I'll wrap them in a wet paper towel and put them in the refrigerator, or sometimes I've got a freezer that doesn't have much in it, and I'll set it to about somewhere in the upper 20s, and I'll leave them in there for 8 weeks or so just to simulate a winter. And then you can pull them out and plant them the way that I would these bur oaks and these Chinkapins. And then, as a hunter and a conservationist, you can go out and plant these in selected areas and really try to propagate these species that benefit wildlife, and they just make for a better patch of woods than all these softwoods that a lot of the timber has been taken over with. So we'll go outside and I'll show you what I'm doing there. Okay, so this is one of the starting beds that I've got for my oaks. This one's for Chinkapins. And all I basically do is take this seedling, and I'll just poke a finger hole about that deep up to there, and I'll stick this down there with a root facing down, obviously, and put just about an inch of this composted soil. This is real rich dirt on top of it. And I'll take one of these flags and stick it right there, so I know that I've got one right there. And I'll go through. I don't want to crowd them. I'll stick another one in there, cover it up, tap it lightly, put another flag on it. And I'll go through and do that to all of these. And then I'll come through and cover it with some hardwood mulch, and they'll be just fine until spring, and then they'll germinate, and by next fall, by next fall they should be about this tall. And I'll wait till they go dormant and drop their leaves, and then I'll dig them up individually and take them back here in my timber, where I'm gradually weeding out the softwoods, the sweet gums and the tulip poplars and the elms and the ashes, and replacing with these oak trees. Okay, now I've got them planted, and I also went through and filled all these little sleeves of the blocks with some of that good compost. Now I'm just going to go through with just a thin layer of hardwood mulch, just so that when we get these really cold nights this winter, they'll have a little bit extra protection. That tender root. That's all I'm going to do. Okay, so this is where I've chosen to plant my Chinkapin oaks today. It's back corner of my property. It had a lot of softwoods in here, so I came in last year and cleared out about an acre here, and I got a great stand of clover for the deer and the turkeys. You know, I pushed up brush piles. That just adds to the wildlife habitat. I'm going to plant these Chinkapins on the downhill side of this because they like a little more soil moisture. So let me show you what I do. Okay, so I've just come in here with a bucket of my compost, watering tubes, and I want to get this thing down here about a foot deep. So when I come back here and water this in July, August, and September, I'm encouraging that taproot to keep going down to get the water. Little Chinkapin I dug up yesterday, but you can see that taproot is just as big as what the top of it is. The surface is right here, so it's just as long, and the other one I've got in here is even longer. So I'm gonna pack this in here with my compost, and then put a cage around it to keep the deer from browsing on it. Okay, so I've got my little oak planted. I made sure that I got the taproot started down, filled in around it with the good compost that I made, carried down here with me. Now I'm just going to fill in with a mixture of the compost and the clay and the natural topsoil that's around here. Pack it in good, and you can bare root these trees for long enough to go get them planted this time of year because they're dormant. As long as you don't let the root dry, they'll be just fine. Now I'm going to take a cage and put over top of it, just to keep the wildlife from browsing on it. Some dirt in just to keep the wind from blowing this cage off. I didn't bring any mulch with me, so I'm just going to use leaf litter that's right here available. And pack that in around it. It really won't need any attention until it starts to dry out next summer, and then I'll come down here, once a week or as needed, and fill that tube up and fertilize as needed. That's my little contribution to the environment here. And being in my early 60s, I'm not gonna I'm not going to reap the rewards of this, but my grandkids will. I've got 2 grandsons that live right up over the hill here, and I think next year they'll be old enough to join me in this process and gain a little appreciation for it. So somewhere down the line, somebody's going to appreciate a nice oak forest in here instead of all these softwoods, and they'll appreciate all the wildlife that comes along with it. Okay, so just a thought on some selective pruning on these young oaks. This one's obviously got a split in the middle. You know, it's not going to cause the tree problems until it gets up, who knows, 20, 30, 40 years old, and then that's eventually going to be a problem. It'll split. It's going to cause a wound, which could let some type of disease in, which could potentially kill the tree. So, you know, this just being a 5-year-old tree, it's well established. It's got one side that's definitely stronger than the other. So here we are in the middle of December. We've had some good hard freezes. The tree's completely dormant. Like that. And then this spring I'll probably tie off to it a little bit and try to pull it over. It'll straighten up on its own, but I can help it a little bit so that within a few years it's got a nice straight trunk. And